deep into the eyes, read them like a book. Trapped inside a prison, gotta free them like a crook. Make off with the loot, made off for the joke. Treated like these cowards never needed what we took, and we repeat it like a hook. Caught in the deep, come back like Wheezy. Card 3, sensation. Wait, then pause the beat. Eyes don't lie, truth still hard to see. They're begging me to show them, they're saying that I owe them, but I'll never give it up. Not for you, not for no one. Foreign ride, touring, soaring, open road, exploring, creepers, sleepers.
Yeah, welcome to the show. This is Smoke the Competition. I'm your host, Eric Sojash. Thank you for checking us out. Please subscribe to the channel. You can follow us on Twitter at Sojash Sports. Today's episode, we're jumping into the NFL Week 15. Can't believe it's almost the end of the season. This is your fantasy football playoffs, and it's a special weekend. We got Thursday night football, and we got a Saturday triple header. First game on Thursday night is between the Los Angeles Chargers and your Las Vegas Raiders. Can't wait to see that one. It's going to be a heck of a matchup. Although we do have backup quarterbacks, it's not going to be Justin Herbert. It's not going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. No, ladies and gentlemen, we got Ethan Schmick. I believe that's how you say his name, or Ethan Schtick. And we got Aiden O'Connell. So don't expect a lot of points here. There's going to be some injuries. I think Keenan Allen's set to miss his game as well. Going to be a rough one, but it's still football. It's still Thursday night. We got some studs that are going to be on the field, and we're going to break that down for you. We're also going to dive into the Saturday game between the Vikings and the Bengals, Steelers and the Colts, and we'll end things off with your Saturday night matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Detroit Lions. So like I said before, this is NFL Week 15. I'm your host, Eric Sojash. This is Smoke the Competition, where we discuss tips, tricks, and ways to beat your competition, not only in fantasy football, but also in the betting world. We're going to break down all these matchups. We're going to break down who I think is going to win, how much points they're going to win by, are they going to cover, what are we taking, and we're also going to dive into your must-starts of the week. This is Smoke the Competition. I'm Eric Sojash. It's NFL Week 15. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and let's go. First thing we're going to do is talk about who you should be starting and who you should be sitting in the Chargers and Raiders matchup. Off the jump, I see Austin Eckler as a good start this week. Not quite a must start. He's just teetering outside that range. Without Justin Herbert, who went to IR earlier this week, the team is going to have to heavily rely on the run. They can't rely on the passing game without their stud passer and without their ace receiver in Keenan Allen. This is going to be a run-centric game, defensive matchup. The Chargers defense is still playing relatively better now. Brandon Staley is leaning into his expertise there. He's going to have to do that more to have any chance in this game without their quarterback. So I see Austin Eckler as a good start. Get him in your lineups. He has a good floor, and he might even boom. Hopping over to the Raiders, players that I see as a good start here is wide receiver Davante Adams. Normally he'd be a must start. Things are a little shaky with Aiden O'Connell. Like I said before, the Chargers defense has been playing better of lately. I do want to have Davante in my lineups because he does offer that upside, but temper your expectations. This could be a defensive matchup. It's a short week. Thursday Night Football has offered us low-scoring affairs lately, so I see Davante as a good start, not quite a must start. And the last player I want to discuss in this matchup is wide receiver Jacoby Myers. Due to all the injuries in this game, there's not a lot of players we're going to talk about, just the three. Austin Eckler, stud, Davante Adams, stud, and now I'm slipping in Jacoby Myers. The reason he gets talked about on this show is because of his PPR upside. If you're in a PPR format league or half PPR, I see him as a safe start. He has a safe floor, but he doesn't offer that explosive game anymore. He's not going to give you a 20-point game. I don't see that. It's going to be a short week, so that means it's going to be a tight battle, defensive matchup. That's how Thursday night has shaped up all season. So if you are desperate, Jacoby is a safe play for you. The next game I want to jump into is the first of the triple header Saturday matchup. We got a special Saturday. I hope everybody has that day off. First game we're kicking things off with is the Minnesota Vikings and the Cincinnati Bengals. Another battle of backup quarterbacks. Nick Mullins is going to be taking on Jake Browning. Let's see who you should be breaking down in this matchup and who I'm going to be picking. All right, let's see who you should be starting and who you should be sitting between the Minnesota Vikings and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to kick things off with the Minnesota Vikings superstar wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. He's been cleared of that chest injury, said he's going to be playing. I get him back in my lineups. I know he may have hurt people last week after getting hurt after, 2 catches, 25 yards. But this is Justin Jefferson. He did that with minimal play. Nick Mullins is a little bit more experienced. He's not going to hang him out to dry. I can see Jefferson giving you a safe floor with major upside Get him in your lineups. Let's see how the stud can do. On the flip side, I see his running mate, Jordan Addison, as a risky start this week. Without Kirk Cousins, Jordan hasn't been quite the same, and now we have Nick Mullins in the mix. Like I said, Justin Jefferson's coming back. They still have a tight end that garnishes a lot of targets. It's a risky play, especially for fantasy playoffs. I'd put Jordan Addison on my bench. I see him as a risky start in Week 15. Speaking of that tight end, I got TJ Hawkinson this week as a good start. He's still one of the better tight ends in the league. With Nick Mullins making his debut, I can see him relying heavily on checkdowns and throwing to his tight end. Hawkinson is a great option to throw to. He's a good start, especially in PPR formats. Get him in your lineups. He could actually be a big winner for you to get you to the next round in fantasy football. Hopping over to those Cincinnati Bengals, kicking things off with their running back. I see Joe Mixon as a good start this week. They're going to rely on him. Minnesota is not the greatest at stopping the run, so I can see the Bengals running the ball here. They've been finding their groove on offense. It took a couple weeks, but they look like a different team. This is a Cincinnati Bengals team that believes they can make the playoffs. A playoff team definitely relies on the run game, and Joe Mixon is a solid running back. I see him as a good start in Week 15. Hopping over to the wide receiver room, we got superstar Jamar Chase. I see him as a must start this week. This is going to be battle of the LSU brothers. Those guys used to just tear it up in college together. I'm talking about Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson on the other side of the ball. This is going to be a hell of a matchup to see them both on the field together, competing, battling against each other. I'm seeing Jamar Chase as an absolute must start. They can force feed him short passes or they can take deep throws to him. It doesn't matter. This guy finds his ways to get the ball in his hands. And like he says, he's always freaking open. Speaking of another wide receiver that's always open, I see T. Higgins as a safe start this week. He made his debut from his injuries there this year, came back last week and had a pretty good game. Not a lot of catches, only 2 catches, but he had 72 yards. Looks like he has a little bit of a groove with Browning. Hopefully they can expand on that in Week 15. I do have T in one league, and I believe I'm going to lean and start him. I see him as a wide receiver 3 with upside this week. He's a safe start that might even get you a big boom. Next game on the Saturday triple header, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Indianapolis, take on the Indianapolis Colts. We got another backup quarterback matchup here. We got Gardner Minshew taking on Mitch Trubisky. Not going to be a pretty game in terms of offense again, ladies and gentlemen, but it is football. We do have some ramifications for betting, and we definitely have some ramifications for fantasy football. Let's see who you should be starting and who you should be sitting in the Pittsburgh Steelers and Indianapolis Colts matchup. To kick things off for Pittsburgh, I see Najee Harris, running back, as a safe start this week. Najee's had a rough season. It hasn't been explosive. He's had a couple back-to-back weeks here, like 3 out of the last 4, where he's done pretty productive, found his way into the end zone. He's still one of the guys that they heavily rely on in the red zone, and for that reason, I do see him as a safe start, but the Colts defense is pretty stud. Mitch Trubisky has not been able to threaten anybody, so they're going to just cramp up on the run game and make it very hard on Pittsburgh to move the ball. I don't see a huge ceiling for Najee, but I do see a safe floor, and in PPR formats, I see him as a safe start. Alongside Najee, we have his running mate Jaylen Warren. I see him also as a safe start this week. Like I said, the Colts do have a formidable defense, especially against the run. Pittsburgh's offense is putrid, but they will rely heavily on their running backs, so I do see Jaylen Warren as a safe start. Hopping over to that wide receiver room, we got Deontay Johnson. This week, I see Deontay as a risky start. Not only is he having trouble off the field with the team, there seems to be some drama behind the scenes, but he's not producing heavily on the field. He does seem to be finding his way to the end zone, but even with those touchdowns, he's not getting a lot of receptions, not a lot of yards. I see him as a huge risk this week. I'd keep him on my benches for fantasy football playoffs. And the same can be said for wide receiver George Pickens. He's so boom or bust, it's not even funny. He's the definition of it this year. I couldn't play him, not for this. The stakes are too high. It's fantasy football playoffs. I see him as a risky start this week. I put him on my bench. Hopefully he booms and gives you more reason to add him down the line, but this week, there's no way I can play him. Jumping over to those Indianapolis Colts, I see running back Zach Moss this week as a safe start. Looks like Jonathan Taylor's going to miss another game. Pittsburgh defense isn't the best against the running backs. Get Zach Moss in your lineups. He's a running back 3 with running back 2 upside, in my opinion. He hasn't been booming as much as you'd expect with all this touches and all this opportunity, but this week he might find his way back to some of that old production. I have him in one league, and I'm definitely starting him. And the only other player I see as a start for those Indianapolis Colts is wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. He's a must start. The guy has been a great add this year. Even without Anthony Richardson, he's been continuing to produce, especially in PPR formats. I don't have him in any leagues. I missed out on him. Probably going to be going against him in a couple leagues for the playoffs. And I'm still telling you, he's a must start this week. Get him in your lineups. I think he's going to boom. This is one of the guys they're going to heavily rely on. The last game of our Saturday triple header is between the Denver Broncos and the Detroit Lions. Now we got some first-class quarterbacks, some veteran quarterbacks, no more backups to talk about. This matchup is between Russell Wilson and Jared Goff. These are two teams that are looking for playoff position. These are teams that are looking to maybe even host a playoff game. Remarkably, Denver is only one game back of the AFC West division, so they are still viable and fighting for that with the Chiefs sliding. This should be a great game to end the Saturday night triple header. I can't wait to see it. Let's see who you should start and who you should sit for those Denver Broncos and Detroit Lions. First player I want to break down is running back of the Denver Broncos, Vontae Williams. I see him this week as a safe start. He's got a pretty good role there in Denver. You could pretty much bet on him getting somewhere between 15 to 20 touches, depending on how the game script goes. But he doesn't get scripted out much. They usually rely on him. They give him the ball, run game and pass game, but he hasn't been able to produce big numbers with that. For that reason, I see him only as a safe start. Detroit does offer a pretty good run defense, so this is not the best matchup for him. Moving over to the wide receiver room, I see Jerry Jeudy as a risky start this week. Jeudy has the talent, but the production is super inconsistent. He should have had a touchdown last week, couldn't keep his feet in bounds for no good reason, and from that production, he just pretty much nosedived. I'm completely out on Jerry Jeudy this year. The talent is there, but you're never going to know when to play him. I see him as a risky start in week 15. And on the flip side, complete opposite of Jerry Jeudy, we see Courtland Sutton as an absolute must start. This guy has progressively made his way into must start territory. He's shown us week in and week out it doesn't matter who the opponent is, it doesn't matter the situation. Him and Russell Wilson find a way to connect for a big play or a touchdown. Get him in your lineups. He's bound to do it again. I'd even bet on him for an anytime touchdown. It just seems like it's his year to do those things. He's got his arms up here, as you can see on the screen. It's Courtland Sutton year, the year of the touchdown. Get him in your lineups. He's an absolute must start. Hopping over to the Detroit Lions, we're going to talk about David Montgomery, their lead running back. I see him as a must start. He is splitting carries with Jahmyr Gibbs, but both of those guys are finding ways to be super productive. Montgomery's finding his way to the end zone still. I'd use him PPR format for sure. I have him in one league and I'm starting him. He's a must start. Don't feel too scary about it. Unless he gets injured, this guy's a pretty solid finisher every week. Speaking of Jahmyr Gibbs, once again, I see him as a must start. Detroit's going to rely on their run game. They're back at home in that dome where it's a fast track, and they're going against a Denver team that did let the Miami Dolphins run wild on them. That was several weeks back, but hey, this might be due for another game where these two running backs go bananas. I have them both as must starts, and I'm not worried about it. Next up is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I see this guy as an absolute must start this week. He's a stud. He's going against a Denver defense that is pretty good on the outside, but not necessarily on the inside, and that's where he does all of his damage. Get him in your lineups. Don't even think twice about it. Amon-Ra is an absolute must start in week 15. And last but not least, I see tight end Sam Laporta as a must start this week. It doesn't matter if it's Kareem Jackson that's going to be guarding him, or if it's those linebackers between Alex Singleton and Josie Jewell, I believe is how you say his name. I don't think any of those guys match up well with Laporta. Kareem might take a shot here or there, but he's already been warned a couple times, so he's going to have to temper his game down. That's going to open up the middle for Laporta, and I can see Laporta eating. Get him in your lineups. I have him in a few leagues. I'm starting him in all leagues that I have him in. I'm not worried about him. He'll be a top 3 finish this week as a tight end. So who gets the win and by how many points? Let's have a look at my Thursday night pick and my Saturday triple headers and who I'm laying my money on. Thursday night football, I'm taking the Raiders at home. I can't go against these Las Vegas Raiders and this defense. I think Max Crosby's going to have a big game. They're going against a backup quarterback. And even when Justin Herbert was playing, that offense still looked like it was stagnant. I'm not touching the Chargers. I'm definitely laying my 3 points on the Raiders at home to get the W behind the Vantage Raiders defense and my boy Max Crosby. Kicking things off on our Saturday triple header, I'm going with the Bengals to cover at 3.5-point favorites at home. Basically, I got to see Nick Mullins do it before I could buy it. I guess what's the saying? I got to see it to believe it. I've already seen it with our quarterback here, Jake Browning, and these Bengals. I know their receivers are hardcore. I know this team is still in position to make the playoffs. I'm riding with the Bengals. I'm comfortably taking them as minus 3.5-point favorites at home. And moving over to that Saturday afternoon game, this was probably my hardest pick of the Saturday triple headers. I went back and forth with this one. Colts seemed like a good pick. They seem like they can get the job done. I was struggling to make a decision on this one. At the end of it, I landed on the road team. I'm going with Pittsburgh. I'm basically betting on this defense, TJ Watt and Mike Tomlin, to find a way to pull a rabbit out of the hat and steal a road victory here. I'm not sure why I'm doing it. I'm just betting on this defense and that Gardner Minshew will make a mistake or two. And last but not least, to end off the weekend, I'm taking the Denver Broncos at +5 when they travel to Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions. I do think Detroit's in a good spot to win this game. I do think their offense is, primed for a bounce back game, but +5 is just a little too much for me. Denver is a serious team. That defense has found its way. I think they'll be able to keep this game close enough to cover those 5 points. So I'm taking Denver +5 on the road, Saturday Night Football to end off that.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you for joining us. Give us a follow. Once again, subscribe to the channel. I'm Eric Sojash. Peace, love. Let's continue to smoke the competition.
Deep into the eyes, read them like a book. Trapped inside a prison, gotta free them like a crook. Make off with the loot, made off for the joke. Treated like these cowards never needed what we took, and we repeat it like a hook. Caught in the deep, come back like Weezy. The card 3, sensation. Wait, then pause the beat. Eyes don't lie, truth still hard to see. They're begging me to show them, they're saying that I owe them, but I'll never give it up. Not for you, not for no one. Foreign ride, touring, soaring, open road, exploring.